Hello there, geeks and gamers. I'm MarcTheCyborg, and here are some of the fascinating new release games coming out in March 2020. Ori and the Blind Forest is an absolute work of art, which is why it was the subject of one of my MarcTheCyborg has been playing videos in January. In that video, I inaccurately stated that the sequel was launching on February 11th because I failed to research that it had been delayed a month. However, March is upon us, and on March 11th, the long-awaited sequel, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, is finally releasing. The gameplay is on a 2D plane, but the visuals are stunning 3D art which looks like a glowing watercolor painting. The animations are beautiful, and if it's anything like the original game, the story could end up being as beautiful as the visuals. The gameplay in Ori is essentially a series of complex jumping puzzles with some satisfying combat and a non-linear 2D world to explore. Unlocking new abilities will let you return to old areas and access new secrets. If you haven't played the original, I strongly recommend checking that one out first, but if you have, you're all set to play Will of the Wisps on your Xbox One via either purchase or Game Pass, or on PC through Steam, Windows 10 Store, or Game Pass. Sadly, no GOG or Switch release date has been announced at this time, so if portability or DRM free are important to you, you might want to wait it out. But Blind Forest did launch on both of those platforms after a while, so there's a good bet that Will of the Wisps will eventually make it there too. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice was my 2019 Game of the Year, and honestly, one of my favorite games of all time, and it felt like what you'd get if From Software, the creators of Dark Souls, made a Ninja Gaiden game. Nioh, on the other hand, feels like what you'd get if Team Ninja, the people who made Ninja Gaiden, made a Dark Souls game. They also make the Dead or Alive games, and well, let's just say I'm a fan. The sequel to Nioh lets the original game's protagonist William take a break, and instead has you create your own character with which to tackle the game's incredibly steep challenge. If you're a fan of the Dark Souls games, you'll feel right at home here, but what sets the Nioh games apart is that each weapon type has a unique moveset with fighting game tier depth and complexity. The combat in Nioh is very fast and responsive, the leveling system does allow you to grind for power or gear, and Nioh 2 adds co-op support for up to 4 players, so the tools to succeed are at your disposal, but still, be ready to die once, twice, or 500,000 times before you finish the game. Nioh 2 is launching on March 13th, sadly exclusive to PS4 for now, but hopefully like the first game, we'll eventually see it come to Steam as well. Persona is probably the most stylish JRPG series in existence, and it's been growing in popularity over the last few installments. Persona 3 and 4 both release what are essentially director's cut versions after a little while in the form of Persona 3 FES and Persona 4 Golden. And on March 31st, Persona 5 is getting its own director's cut, Persona 5 Royal. Sadly, if you've already played Persona 5 and just want to see the new content, there is no way to add it to your existing copy as DLC. A new purchase and an entire new run of the game will be required. The upside is that it won't be the exact same experience as the vanilla version of Persona 5. The main story, awesome turn-based combat, and spectacular soundtrack remain intact, but there will be countless surprises in store for even returning players. Atlus is still keeping Persona 5 as a PlayStation exclusive for now, but if you've got a PS4 and want to feel what it's like to live as a sexy, stylish Japanese teen for 100 hours, check out Persona 5 Royal on March 31st. Or at least buy the soundtrack, it's really good. I even have it on vinyl because I'm a hipster douchebag. Ninja Theory is a fantastic studio who makes incredible cinematic single-player games like the stunning Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice and the Devil May Cry reboot, which didn't find an audience but which I absolutely loved personally. Bleeding Edge is not only their first game under the Microsoft Game Studios banner, it's also very atypical of them as there's no single-player element at all. Instead, it's a 4v4 hero-based fighting game, which seems like it has more in common with Overwatch than it does with Hellblade. This would concern me if not for the announcement of Hellblade 2 and the very mysterious, very cool-looking Project Mara. But as long as Ninja Theory is still making the type of games they excel at, I'm really interested to see how Bleeding Edge turns out. Ninja Theory made their name with character action games like Heavenly Sword, Enslaved, the aforementioned Devil May Cry reboot, as well as the lightsaber combat in the Star Wars segments of the now defunct Disney Infinity project. As such, they are very well suited to make a multiplayer character action game, so Bleeding Edge stands a chance at being a really solid game. Arrekz Gaming was sponsored by Ninja Theory to do a series on it, and his Monster Hunter World videos were my buddy Fonz and I's Bible as we were learning to play that game. So I recommend giving his content to watch if you'd like to learn about the game before March 24th, when Bleeding Edge launches on Xbox One and PC. Also worth noting, it will be on Microsoft Game Pass, which will make trying the game out really easy if you're subscribed to that service. Valve's legendary Half-Life series has been dormant since 2007 when Half-Life 2 Episode 2 ended on a massive cliffhanger that has still not been resolved. On March 23rd, Half-Life is returning with what stands a chance at being as revolutionary for VR game design as the first two Half-Life games were for first-person shooter design, with HalfLife Alyx. In this story, which takes place just before Half-Life 2, you take the role of Alex Vance, who is Gordon Freeman's charismatic companion in Half-Life 2. The exact details of the story have been kept quite secret, but Valve promises that this will not simply be a VR minigame which will be over in an hour, but a full-blown campaign. The Valve Index controllers feel incredible to use, and I can't wait to give them a proper test drive with a game designed from the ground up for them. But Half-Life Alyx is also playable on the HTC Vive, Vive Pro, Oculus Rift, Windows Mixed Reality, and even the Oculus Quest if you use the Link peripheral to connect it to a capable PC. While Half-Life Alyx has been making Valve's proprietary hardware, the Valve Index, sell like hotcakes, Valve is being good about supporting as many platforms as possible, and maybe if console players are lucky, Half-Life Alyx will make it to the PlayStation 5 and PSVR later this year. Side note, Half-Life 2 still holds up and you should play it. The physics puzzles are awesome, the story is great, and...
Seriously, Lana, this must be what it's like to have sex with me.
How could an airboat be selfish?
Nope, can't hear you. I'm too happy.
The granddaddy of the first-person shooter genre is finally coming back. Again. The 2016 Doom reboot is one of the best games of the last decade, and after a short delay which knocked it out of the holiday season, on the 20th of March we'll get to strap on the green armor of the Doomslayer and resume being literally too angry to die. The newest iterations of Doom combine fast-paced first-person shooting action with progressive advanced mobility, and most of all, a finishing move system in which enemies glow, indicating you can execute a glory kill, which trigger beautiful animations that give Mortal Kombat fatalities a run for their money. Doom Eternal looks to not only expand the scope of the Doom lore beyond the background texture it provided for the 2016 reboot, but also add more strategy to the glory kill system. The Doomslayer now has a flamethrower, which will cause enemies to drop armor, the way the chainsaw causes them to drop ammo and the barehanded glory kills cause them to drop health. While this sounds like it'll just make it much easier to acquire armor, word is the difficulty is being ramped up significantly, so this time around be prepared to have to earn that badass feeling that the Doom games are so good at providing. Doom 64 is also being ported to all modern consoles and officially released on PC on March 20th, but if you've got a legally purchased copy of Doom 2 on PC, you've got what you need to get the brutal Doom 64 mod up and running, which I strongly recommend because it's amazing. If it's your first foray into Doom source port mods, you're about to enter a whole world of amazing shooter content, link in the description. Also in the description, you'll find a link to my recent mini review of Doom 2016, which you should absolutely play. It's certainly a game of unbridled awesomeness. March 20th is the day you'll find Doom Eternal on Steam, PS4, and Xbox One. If you don't like making good decisions, you can also pick it up on the Bethesda Store or Google Stadia. Finally, while a Switch version of Eternal was planned, information about it seems to have dropped off the map, so I don't have a solid release date for you at this time. Later or never seem much more likely than March 20th, though. What an epic month we have on our hands. The Final Fantasy VII Remake might have slipped out of March, but as you can see, there is no shortage of great games coming out. That being said, as always, be a smart consumer and never feel obligated to play games on launch day. They'll be waiting for you when you're ready to play them, likely on sale with many of the bugs and glitches worked out. But if you were curious, I've hopefully reminded you of the major releases launching this month, and if you weren't, don't worry about it, I'm gone. For Gaming with Geeks, I'm MarcTheCyborg, and you have an extremely charismatic personality.